my story, the story that I would tell at convention, it was like, it was the pretty story. It was the pretty recovery story. And my first book was very much like the nitty gritty, dirty details. And that was one thing. They're like, they didn't like it. They didn't like that someone so like high profile was admitting these very shameful things. And so that was icky. And then again, all the COVID stuff, all the misinformation, I couldn't be associated anymore. And the other thing that was happening at this time is like, I was still at the top. I was still at the top, even doing nothing. So nothing confirmed to me more than that it was not my own work. It was not this bullshit about, I got to the top and I worked hard. No, it was all the people underneath me who were losing money. And that's why I was still up here.
Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
Hi, Emily.
Hey, hun, how are you?
That was great, Matt.
Thanks. That'll be my one-liner for the show.
So. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So today in the podcast, we have Lynn Paulson, who is a New York Times bestseller, a 2-time TEDx talker. Your first book, I believe, is called Highlight Reel. And yes. This next one, Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multilevel Marketing.
Ooh.
That's me.
We love to talk about it.
We do.
And what's interesting is I feel like we're like 6 degrees of separation. We know a lot of the same people. And I was reading some of the book and I read the back and I'm like, okay, I know Celeste Yvonne. She was on the podcast. And then Roberta Blevins is actually a really good friend of Matt's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Very cool.
So I'm like, okay. And then Laura McCowan, come to find out, like she, like the first year that I got sober, her and Holly had that podcast Home. And I end up getting the TT tattoo.
Mm.
Yeah. Right. So there's a lot of
overlap.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's true. Obviously MLM and health and wellness industry, they're almost hand in hand. Would you agree?
Yeah. It's like I don't even know if it's a Venn diagram. It's like a full circle, right? It's, I think MLMs really bastardize the worst parts of anything that's already out there. Right. Yeah.
So we're going to talk a lot about MLMs, and I would love for you, because I know a lot of people maybe don't know what an MLM is. Could you explain to everybody, what an MLM is as best as you can? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the multi-level part of it. So it stands for multi-level marketing. And you'll hear this phrase in different ways, like network marketing, direct sales, social commerce. Companies really try to brand themselves, and reps try and brand themselves not as MLM because it is having kind of a negative connotation these days, which is a good thing. But essentially you aren't just a person selling stuff. Selling stuff is great. You want to sell things to people, great. You want to have a store, sell things. What you are is an unpaid sales rep, an independent contractor, and you are joining a person who's also an independent contractor who makes money off of all of your sales. So the money in multi-level marketing is really paid in recruiting and not the actual product sales. So the products are really just a way to get people in the pyramid, so to speak. The people who make money are, again, the corporate heads, the CEOs, CFOs, people at the top, and the very, very, very few people, the very few reps at the top of the pyramid, and everybody else essentially is losing money. So you see these all over social media. If anybody's like, join my team, I have 5 spots left this month, partner with me, whatever. A lot of that is MLM.
Mm-hmm. And they love to target like the mothers, the people that are, maybe stay-at-home moms or, maybe
Single moms, military wives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most common I've seen.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and it's like when you're a mom, your unpaid labor is already holding up like the entire world, right? And so you're already used to doing unpaid work. So when someone says, hey, just post on social media, I mean, you're not getting paid for any of that labor. And it's just the hope that maybe something will come out of it. I think that's the really predatory thing about MLMs is that it will make itself, and reps will make this opportunity fit itself in whatever your pain point is. Hey, I want to lose baby weight. I want to have a community. I want to make money, whatever, fill in the blank, and it'll be the answer for everything.
The answer to all your problems. Oh.
Or the reason for all of your problems, depending how far into it you get.
Yeah. And you get pretty high up there.
Yeah.
High ranked. I believe I read you made over, in the millions.
Yeah. So, well, and that's what's funny too, is, articles are like to be clickbaity, as you know. And so I've written about how, I made over $1 million in an MLM. Well, what that really looks like is a lot different than say making $1 million in, as a salary in a job, right? That's over the entire tenure. So when someone says I'm $1 million earner in an MLM, that's over the 6 years, 10 years, however many years they've been in. That's before taxes, again, because these are 1099 contractors. And that includes all of the gifts, freebies, bonuses, trips, products. So essentially, like half of my income was all of these gifts, bonuses, trips. Those things are great, but like you can't, pay your mortgage with those. You know what I mean? So the actual financials, when you say, oh, I became a millionaire, it's like, not really. Like that's not really what it was, but all of that stuff's very inspirational for social media. And that's why it's always smokescreen. Oh yeah.
I always see the fucking cars, like these horrible pink cars, or I don't know what they are these days, but and that's considered income then. And then they're taxed on top of that for that too, right? So it's almost like a double whammy. They're actually not making that money and then they're getting taxed on top of it.
100%. Well, and the car is such a ruse because you are essentially, you're qualifying for a car. I've used a lot of air quotes because you get to a certain title, whatever it is for that company, super extra special diamond princess or whatever stupid title name they have. And you maintain that for a couple of months and then you earn your car. Well, earning a car in an MLM just means you go to the dealership yourself and you either lease or buy a car yourself. You put your name on it. The company's not on there, nothing. You fill out the contracts, you pay the down payment, you do the title registration, all that stuff, and you now have a car. Well, now the company will give you a stipend every month, but only if you maintain that title. So what happens a lot of times is people get to this car qualification and they're like, well, I have to get the car because I have to show people that I've gotten to this place. And it's all, again, it's this aspirational stuff. And then they don't maintain it. So now they're stuck with this car payment and the stipend never actually covers the entire car payment because again, it's a Mercedes, a Lexus, a Cadillac. They're not cheap vehicles. And so people are stuck with these cars that they never really wanted in the first place. And that's done on purpose because it looks good for the company. Oof, my free car. It looks good for the rep who's going to recruit more people off of it. And the company has no liability because you bought your own car, you leased your own car. It's on you.
Right.
That blew me away. I did not know any of that. And when I read that, I'm like, oh my God. So I know, some people in Plexus that are on Facebook and they're local friends and, they got the cars. And of course, a few years ago on the outside looking in, I'm like, oh, wow. Like they got a car. That's insane. Like, look at her. So it is such a showy, like you said, clickbait thing that, people are like, well, maybe I can get the car too.
Exactly. And it's that hope. And that is the hardest part about MLMs to really get your brain around it. There's so much cognitive dissonance because anywhere you look, all statistics out there will tell you that most people don't make it. 99.7% of people don't earn a dime. And yet your friend or your acquaintance or your college, whatever, bestie who came in your DMs who you don't even remember, earned a car. And you're like, well, wow, if she can do it, I can too. So it preys on that hope, even when the logic is not there, right?
Emotion's very powerful. With those cars, do the MLM companies push you towards buying those more luxurious cars, the Mercedes and BMWs and everything like that? Because of course it's a status thing, right? They want to give that illusion that, you can be living the high roller life too, like that, right?
Oh yeah. And, there were stipulations for getting that stipend, and it was like, it had to be brand new, right? It had to be a brand new car. It had to be a certain color. It had to be a certain brand. And yeah, it was Lexus, Mercedes, Cadillac. I don't know of any other company that has any other, those are luxury, very expensive cars. So again, if you don't maintain that status, which probably isn't really bringing in the income to cover that payment anyway, and you lose that status, you're kind of screwed. And a lot of those leases do end up getting turned in early, which is, that's on your credit. It's in your bank account, all of that. It's on you. You're the one who suffers, not the company.
Yeah.
And they do a very good job of making sure that you take all responsibility for anything that's going on, right? Because they keep you as an independent contractor. So they draw that line in the sand, and they make it very clear that something bad happens to you, it's not going to happen to them, essentially.
Yeah. And that's the really one big reason why MLMs are in operation, because if they do, we saw this during COVID, if they do have consultants saying really off the wall stuff like our essential oils can cure COVID, really, really wild medical claims.
I remember that kind of crap. Ugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All they need to do is find the consultant or ask the consultant, and the consultant is the one who suffers. And the company can just be like, oh, they're independent contractors. We didn't tell them to say that. They signed the dotted line, so it's their fault. And so they are not liable for a lot of the things that these consultants do. So the company doesn't suffer for it.
Okay. So internally, is there any kind of, and maybe this is something you can't talk about, but is this internally, does the company kind of promote this narrative of like the essential oils and the COVID claims and things like that? Or I don't know, is there any distance there or?
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a very fine line between there's the corporate speak, you have your handbook that you need to follow. But yet the people you're surrounded with the whole time are just people. They're your upline, they're your team who, that's where you're hearing everything. And so from corporate, it's like, oh, don't say this, don't say that. But then you've got, your upline Sally, who is posting something on social media and it gets a lot of likes. So you're going to share it. Right. So you're so influenced by the people in proximity to you that even if the company were to, make statements like, don't post this, don't say this, the damage is already done. It's already been done. It's very reactive as opposed to preventative, if that makes sense.
Totally.
When the world feels crazy and chaotic, remember that you don't have to. You deserve to take control of your mental and physical health. Cured Nutrition is trying to make it easier for you to do just that. Formulated with their trinity of ingredients, a blend of full spectrum cannabinoids, functional mushrooms, and adaptogens, Serenity Gummies are your answer to finding the calm in every storm. Cured wants you to feel good about feeling good. They took their time formulating their Serenity Gummies. They left out the artificial flavors, sugars, and dyes, and replaced them with ingredients that actually live up to their clean label, wellnessy word. I've recently started taking Serenity Gummies at night for my nighttime routine to help me get settled after a long, stressful day, and they've been really easing me into a great nighttime sleep. Right now, Cured is extending an exclusive offer to you, our listeners. You can grab a bag of Serenity Gummies for 20% off by visiting www.curednutrition.com/CTC and using the coupon code CTC at checkout. That's CURED nutrition.com/CTC and coupon code CTC at checkout to save 20%. To protect your peace and pop a gummy. So when did you get started into an MLM?
Yeah, so it was early 2014. And I was, stay-at-home mom. I'd been home for many years and we'd had our last baby. And I'm like, okay, well, that part of my life is like the baby making phase of my life is over. And I was just in the space where I was lonely. and I was looking for something. I wanted to contribute, and I didn't know how without, like childcare for 5 kids would have been ridiculous. My husband worked long hours. And so this came into my life really at a time where I was just looking for something, and like, oh, it's attached to like a community and nice people. And this, acquaintance from high school who I trust, and I've seen her post on social media. It just seemed like the Band-Aid for the pain that I was in at that point.
Mm-hmm. And so I know you are sober too. So was your sobriety, alcoholism intertwined with the MLM? And I know there's a lot of questions at once. You became sober during being in that MLM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's completely related. And I think, for anyone who's ever used alcohol to cope, I was really looking for the same things, right? Like I was using alcohol to escape. I was using alcohol to cope. And this MLM, again, was like trying to fix something that systemically that wasn't going to fix it, right? I was lonely. I wanted more of an escape. And so it really exacerbated a problem that was already there. Because now I had like wine nights with girlfriends, or meeting with clients, or these retention events and conventions where there was just champagne flowing. And I found also that, I'd have a couple glasses of champagne, and then I could send a bunch of cold DMs, to people. And, I was obviously less inhibited. So I would be pushier and sell stuff. So like the more I sold, the more I drank, the more I drank, the more I sold.
Oh man.
And so by the time I got to the point where I did have to quit drinking, like I had like rock bottom moment after rock bottom moment, that is when the wheels started falling off the bus for me with the MLM. It was realizing like, oh shit, I can't send these cold messages anymore. This feels weird talking like this. I was starting to see things that drinking had really squashed my own intuition. And that's when I started like waking up to the ruse a little bit. And yet at the same time, the MLM really celebrated this new like sobriety. Like, oh my gosh, now you are this inspirational tale. And because I was so new in sobriety and it was, I was really encouraged, like share your story, talk about it, be of service. To me, this was a way like, oh, this is great. Like I can be of service this way and share my story, not really understanding that it was just keeping more people roped into the MLM. It wasn't really, to spread the word of like recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of kept me roped in even more. But that's one thing that MLMs do also is it's those rags to riches stories, every story I ever heard at convention, every speaker, it was like, oh, I was in an abusive marriage, or I was paralyzed. My daughter had brain surgery. It was always these circumstances that had nothing to do with the MLM were used to then promote the MLM.
So they would take your pain and be like, you need to use this as your message.
100%. And it was hard because at that point, it's like I was at the top at that point. So by the time I stopped drinking, I was already up there. And it wasn't really my work keeping me there at that point. Once you get to that point, you got this whole pyramid underneath you. And I sort of thought like, well, here I am, I'm sober and I'm at the top. So like, this must have like unlocked some new level of like boss babe for me. Right. So it was like this other level of cognitive dissonance too. And I did feel good about myself. And when you're confronting the things you did in active addiction, and you're like dealing with shame and dealing with, going to therapists and doing all the stuff I was doing, working the steps, throwing myself into something else, even if it was this MLM, felt really productive and helpful and positive.
Mm-hmm.
So you started the MLM back in 2014 or so. How long into it, did you realize you had a problem with alcohol? And then how much longer after that did you make the connection there between alcohol and the MLM and kind of an exit strategy, essentially?
Yeah. So I think hindsight's 2020, obviously, like I had a problem, but already by that point when I joined, but it was really well hidden and it just kept getting worse. And by, I would say 2016 is really when it got bad, when I knew it was bad and I was trying to do anything I could to prove to myself that I could keep drinking. I was making all those excuses like, well, I haven't had a DUI yet. And then I got a DUI. I haven't had trouble with my marriage yet. And then I had trouble with my marriage. All of these things. I haven't been in the hospital. Then I was in the hospital. And what was scary at that point is when all those things happen, I still couldn't stop. It was really like, it took a lot. It took a lot to get me there. It was honestly getting the DUI, which ironically was in the free car that I earned the day I earned it. I got the DUI, which that's a whole thing. I, had to get a breathalyzer in my car. And that obviously was like, made me realize how much I was drinking. And I couldn't start the car in the morning because I, how much drinking the night before. It just like, I was like, okay, I am drinking a lot. And it just got to the point where I realized I was like eliminating myself, right? Like the only place lower than like multiple hospital stints and, is like, I'm going to kill myself with this. And so January 1st, I said, I'm done drinking. I went to an AA meeting. I'm like, this is it. I threw myself into recovery. And that was the point when I was spending so much time like on myself and my own recovery and still in the MLM. Everyone in the MLM was cheering me on. So it was kind of keeping me there. Right. And I would say it was probably a year or so into that I started to feel exploited and started realizing like, I don't want this to be my recovery thing. Like I want to do something different. I'm starting to see things I don't like, decided to write a book, decided to, go into recovery coaching and do certifications and, facilitate addiction awareness. And at the time, I didn't think I would actually go into recovery coaching or become a coach. I just wanted to learn more so that, when I wrote the book, it wouldn't just be like my story. It would actually have some, credentials behind it. And that I slowly started walking my way back out of the MLM. I talked to my team. I talked to my customers and just said, like, hey, this is what I used to believe. This is what I used to think this was. And now this is what I believe now. And so I was very transparent during the process. And to be honest, most people in the MLM were supportive of it. And then 2020 happened. And, it was like my exit, it wasn't so celebrated anymore. It was very much like, oh, you're writing this book, you're doing this other thing. I started getting like turned into compliance for doing something else.
Even though the book had nothing to do with MLMs, right?
Nothing to do with it. Yeah, it was just that it was taking away from promoting the MLM.
I see. Okay. They didn't benefit from it. So they're like, no,
they didn't benefit from it. Yeah. And, the other thing was my story, the story that I would tell at convention, it was like, it was the pretty story. It was the pretty recovery story. And my first book was very much like the nitty gritty, dirty details. And that was one thing. They're like, they didn't like it. They didn't like that someone so like high profile was admitting these very shameful things. And so that was icky. And then again, all the COVID stuff, all the misinformation, I couldn't be associated anymore. And the other thing that was happening at this time is like, I was still at the top. I was still at the top, even doing nothing. So nothing confirmed to me more than that it was not my own work. It was not this bullshit about, oh, I got to the top and I worked hard. No, it was all the people underneath me who were losing money. And that's why I was still up here and I couldn't be associated anymore. And so I quit.
Mm-hmm. So you just said all the people underneath you losing money. Did you know that was kind of how the business model operated, when you got into it? No.
And of course, had I looked at, mathematics and statistics and the reality,
how impossible it would be.
Yeah. You hear 99.7% of people don't earn money, but you're also told it's up to you. If you want to work hard, it's this meritocracy that pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You can make it. Mm-hmm. And you see people maybe that you see a few people, well, they made it. Why can't I? And it was just it was dumb luck for one thing. It was a certain set of circumstances that I joined at a time where people where I was living in my area didn't really know about this company yet. Not a lot of people had joined it. I had a husband with an income. So I had money to spend on products, and I had a network of people who had money to spend on products. So it was just the lightning struck at the right time. And that's why I was able to succeed. But even with those perfect set of circumstances, still most people don't. It was just really dumb luck. And so I believed, because I was told, you do these things, you succeed. Well, I did these things and I was succeeding. And so I really believed, why wouldn't I? That if other people did these things, they would succeed. So for a very long time, until I got sober, I thought people just aren't succeeding because they must not be doing the work. And because there is an endless ladder of things to do, like there's always another book you can read. There's always another like mentor you can go to. There's always another coaching something you can sign up for. There's this endless chain of personal development. There's always more people you can reach out to, more people you can cold call. You really don't have anyone to blame but yourself, because there's always more that you can do, which is why a lot of people don't leave or don't talk about it, because they feel like they were the reason that they failed.
That's what they literally brainwash you to believe.
I was going to say it's cult. And you explain that, like you had to do some research about cults for the book.
Yeah. And that was part of my leaving too, was realizing how influenced I had been. That, I understand. I've had a lot of empathy for people who have critical things to say about this book, because I would have been that person. I wouldn't have read it. I would have just said, this is trash, this is fake, this is whatever, because it was so against what I needed to believe to be in that system. But it's so amazing once you really research it. And once I realized how I had been influenced, just even the most little things, like everyone starts to like buy the same shoes, and, you like get gifts with the company logo on them, and you really become like your title, you become the company. And it's different than just a job, right? It's different than walking in the door of your workplace and leaving, and you might have friends outside of work, but like it's compartmentalized. The MLM is not. It is, you are the MLM. It takes over your entire personality. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really hard to remove yourself from it.
You said a quote, I listened to a podcast you were on. The fear of leaving is kind of worse than the fear of staying.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like the devil, versus the devil you don't. Yeah. Because, and that's that sunk cost. It's the sunk cost fallacy. And whether that cost is your money, which a lot of times it is, people are like, well, I'm buying my own products anyway. I pay these, I would buy this every month anyway. I might as well be a consultant, blah, blah, blah. Or these are all my friends. I've put so much time into this. I've ostracized my friends outside of this MLM. So I can't leave this point.
Because your only friends are the people in the MLM at that point, because you've alienated everybody else. Yeah,
you've alienated everyone else. And you're told that the people who don't buy from you, join you, are not supportive.
They're haters.
They're haters. And your confirmation is right there. Oh, I have this supportive group of women, and all these people out here don't support me. So you really believe that.
It's like the controlling, abusive significant other, is essentially pitting you against everybody else, and everybody else is out to get you. But I support you, and I love you, and everybody else is wrong.
Yeah. And meanwhile, those people are financially motivated to keep you there.
Right. Totally, because they stand to lose a lot of money if an upline loses, a person underneath them that has a lot of people underneath them, they're going to lose a substantial amount of money.
Mm-hmm. And just that belief, there was a lot always talked about in the MLM, like, oh, you've lost belief in the company. And that's why these retention events are so important. These conventions are so important, because you go and it's this electrifying, it's like, it means so much more than just supplements or skincare or whatever the hell you're selling. It's like, it's this mission. It almost becomes this like religious thing. Right. You're like on a mission to change the world. And you really believe that you're offering something great to people. It's really, again, it's like really intoxicating, very intoxicating.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the conferences, because I was actually going to ask you about that when you were talking about, reaching out to mentors and things like that. So what the hell is up with these conferences that we see all these MLM companies having, the Herbalife and the Prove It and whatever the conferences are? Because like it's a big cheerleading session, right? And we see that from an outside looking in. But me, now that I'm involved a little bit in the MLM movement. I'm like, no, this is bullshit. Like I see right through you, but what is like the reality of these conferences?
Oh yeah. Well, and one thing about these too is like regular corporations, regular jobs, regular, organizations have stuff like this.
Totally. I've been to plenty.
The difference is they're getting paid to be there. So like that's number one, the biggest red flag is that not only are you not getting a wage, you are paying to go to these things.
I was going to say, are you paying to go to these conferences
lot.
where, from the outside looking in, don't mean to interrupt, but
No.
I'm thinking they're getting these trips, they're going to Hawaii. So you're paying for all that.
You are paying 100% your own way to these.
They'll never say that though, right?
Oh, I mean, when you're in the company, right? But from the outside, no one says like, I paid $500 to be here. It's like, oh, I'm at convention. This is so amazing. And so then they always have some lineup of entertainment like Kelly Clarkson or Katy Perry or whatever. And people are like, oh my gosh, look at this person at this convention. It's like that person cares not about your products or your company at all. They're getting paid to be there, right? And the reason they're getting paid is because you're spending your hand over fist spending money to be here. The speakers are either consultants in the company, so there's no overhead there. And then there's always some sort of headline speaker like the Rachel Hollis, the Mel Robbins, the, Jenna Kutcher, these people who are like, I don't know. It's just like this hit list.
Motivational speakers.
Yeah, kind of thing. Hit list of like privileged white women, always.
Right.
And they don't care about the company. They don't care. It's just about rah. And then you just feel so much more attached to the company. It's all about keeping you invested in. If you work hard, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, all of that same stuff all of the time. There's parties that you have to qualify for. You're kept really, really busy. So you like barely sleep, you barely eat, and that's done by design because the less time you have to like rest, the less time you have to think critically. And so you're going to buy the big, new product that's launched and
shiny object syndrome. They're dangling in front of you constantly.
Totally shiny objects. So, and these things, these retention events, these conventions, they do them on the smaller scale, like locally. They're done all the time, all around the country in all companies because they are necessary. They are necessary to keep people going because if a long enough time goes between like, you're not making money for 6 months or something, but then you go to one of these conventions and you're like electrified, it'll keep you invested, right? Till the next, whatever retention event, convention, retreat, whatever, again, thing you have to spend money for because you're like, oh, these are so fun. And I'm filled with personal development and all this crap. So that's one thing I think that happened also during COVID to a lot of people is there was that separation where, okay, we're doing stuff online, but it's like people started to think like, ooh, they're not being electrified by these things anymore. And I think that kind of led to a mass exodus in some regard. Of course, there were those people who then got roped in financially because they lost their job or whatever, and they were preyed upon. But again, those conventions, they are so necessary and you are really bullied to be there. Like, hey, leaders show up. And, if you want to be successful, you come to this. And then if you don't, they'll be like, well, you should have come to convention. Like you didn't get the product. Yep. So it's just one more reason that you can be blamed later if you don't go to these big, expensive things. And they are, so much money for travel, for, the tickets, meals, hotels, none of it's covered. It's thousands of dollars.
That's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I traveled for the better part of almost a decade in corporate America. And not once did I pay for my own shit. I've never paid for flights, lodging, food, nothing. And I was literally getting paid to be there.
Exactly.
So on that note, then too, talking about corporate America, that's a common thing that we hear from the MLM crowd, right? Is, oh, well, you're just working for an MLM too. Corporate's an MLM because you're working for somebody. And so how can we debunk that? How can you debunk that?
Yeah. I hate that so much, by the way. Like it's
stupid.
Oh,
Right.
it is. And it's just that knee-jerk response that people don't even think about that you're told. And I said that before too. Like, it's not the shape of something that makes it a pyramid scheme. Even, like, okay, yes, employees, managers, CEO. Oh, it's a triangle. It's a pyramid scheme. No, because every managerial layer is getting paid. They're all getting paid. They sign a contract. They have, and say what you will about a living wage. And I know there's a lot, capitalism, like we've got a long way to go to pay people fairly and the cost of living, all that stuff. Like I'm not even going there. But at least in capitalism, you are being paid. You are legally required to be paid for your time. You get sick leave.
At a bare minimum wage.
Yeah. I mean, so in an MLM, not only are you trying to elbow your way to the top, and the thing that's sold is anybody can make it to the top. Well, no, they can't. But nobody is being paid for the work they're doing. Nobody's being paid. You're being paid for recruiting people if they join. You're being paid for sales of product, very little, but you are not being paid for your work. There's just so many differences, and you can't. There's also connotations of like, oh, my own small business, which that also drives me nuts because
I'm a business owner.
Yeah, small business Saturday. Like, no, thank you. You're not a small business. You're not the CEO of a company that already has a CEO. So when you see if you see a Instagram bio and it's like CEO of, they're probably in an MLM, unless they're, an actual CEO of a company. Mm-hmm. Support a small business like you do Kylie Jenner or whatever. And it's like every MLM is a corporation. And yet they can't see that they are just a 1099 contractor for a corporation. They do not own a small business. They can't decide their own products. They can't make their own sales points. They don't decide anything. They're told
they can be all taken away from them at any given moment too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no protections, nothing. And it's not even that, fine, you want to be an independent contractor for somebody, great. It's just that it's so skewed and it's this so anti-95, it's anti-corporate America, it's anti-everything else in order to make it look better. Like MLMs don't look good enough on their own because they're so shitty that we have to align everything else to make them look good.
Mm-hmm. Sling mud, get dirt on everybody else, and hopefully you're just the cleaner one of all of them.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh man. I'm hoping that all these MLMs are like slowly just on their way fucking out.
There's a lot of them that are having some problems right now.
With people like you talking and writing these books. And I think a lot of people are talking about it a lot more, like Matt, you just said.
Yeah. And I do think the change will come on the consumer level because, and I talk a lot about this in the book. People are like, well, if they're so bad, why aren't they illegal? It's like, because
lobbying.
Yeah. Money. Like, hello, money.
Mm-hmm.
Like every presidential campaign has made money off of MLMs. There's lobbyists and politicians.
Both sides.
Yeah. So they don't have any vested interest in making these things go away. They're making money off of them. And so the only way they're going to change, and the only way they have changed, is by, again, like class action lawsuits, like Beachbody's being sued right now. Thank God.
Oh, good. I did not know that.
What for? Yeah, neither did I.
For false income claims, for promises of,
common, right?
Yeah. And again, these are the consultants who are making those claims, but the company's not doing anything about it. So what likely will happen is these consultants will get terminated or get fined, and the company will change a few things around. Like, again, it's the people who suffer. It's the women, mostly women, who suffer, who join hoping to change their lives and change others' lives. But, a lot of companies do have to restructure. Advocare had to restructure. Herbalife's had to restructure. So I think, the FTC does what it can, but I do think on a consumer level, it's just, we need to be smarter about who's getting our money and who's just trying to grift, especially now with, as you see, like MLM people are now coaching, like coaching coaches to coach coaches, right? All the time.
Like
and
Optavia.
Business coaching is a whole nother.
Optavia is an MLM, isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
It is. And it's a terrible one. I mean,
worst one in our industry with health and wellness, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah. And honestly, I think the health and wellness ones are the most toxic, dangerous, like health-wise, because, you buy like a skin serum or something that's bad. It's like you can get a rash, whatever. But like, you're messing with people's like health, with their stomachs and their livers and their, you know what I mean? Like it's bad. And then you throw all of like the body shaming and everything in there too, from people who are not certified in nutrition, for people who pay money and then say they're a coach.
Another coach. That's fucking bullshit.
It's really dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
That makes it harder for legit coaches like myself, Beth, and 100%. Other coaches, because like you can just go work for Optavia and they'll put you on an 800-calorie diet, and the coach is going to be there, oh, you're doing great, and with no qualifications, and not understanding the fact that these diets are literally destroying our metabolisms and our bone density, our muscle mass.
People are losing hair,
and all these other things. Like, it's insane.
100%.
Somebody with qualifications would know that's not okay and safe.
Yep. And I see it in the sobriety community too. And I'm sure you've seen this too, is there's not a lot of regulation around being able to call yourself a coach. And so I find this, as a recovery coach, like someone who's certified and taking courses and stuff, that, you do have people pop up who they were in Beachbody. And so now they call themselves a coach and they're also sober. So now they're a sober coach. And it's like, no, that's not what it is.
right?
I really wish that we had some type of regulation on that term, coach, and who can do that type of stuff, and fully admitting that would directly impact me as a coach. Like, I would have to go back to school to get a 4-year degree or whatever they said I had to do, but I would fucking do it though.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Because that's the responsible thing to do, and because I actually care about helping people, and doing things the ethical way.
Totally. I totally agree. Yeah.
Speaking of sobriety coach, I'd love to hear about your Sober Mom Squad and how that got started.
Oh yeah. So I'm sure Celeste talked about this too, and Celeste is awesome. So, and also just like shout out people listening to this. She's got a book coming out in the fall. That's really good. It's called It's Not About the Wine. Anyway, I'm not her publicist. I just love her. And she's
she's the best.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I had written a book in 2019 and came out in September. And so I was kind of doing that, and I was going into recovery coaching, and I was really working one-on-one with women who had stories very much like mine, like had very rock bottom consequences. They maybe had just come out of rehab, or they were, had a sponsor in AA and, wanted someone to coach with them. And then, all the quarantine and lockdowns happened. And so I'm home with my 5 children, who I now have to teach, and my husband's at home. And so like the one-on-one stuff, it wasn't going to happen. And so I reached out, on social media. I'm like, does anyone else, what do you want to do? Like, like, I want to help. And at the same time, I was hearing from a lot of moms who were like, hey, just a question. Like, I never considered myself a big drinker. I always thought I was a social drinker. And now I'm not being social. And now I'm drinking more than ever. And my kids are home and it's really uncomfortable. So I'm like, well, what about, let's have like a meeting. And so Celeste was one of the people. I'm like, would you help me do this? And we just started having a free meeting on Wednesdays. And it was just like, hey, if you're a mom and you're like just wanting to get out of the sea of like wine mom memes and the pressure to drink, and you just have questions or whatever, you want support, just come. And so we started doing this every Wednesday, and it was really well received, and people were asking for more meetings. And so we got some more volunteers to run meetings, and then people were wanting like a platform and coaching. And so it turned into Sober Mom Squad, which is what it is now, which is an app. And we've got a whole separate message board that's private. We've got meetings, multiple meetings a day. We have a certified trauma coach. We have like EFT tapping, a book club. We just have all this stuff that as women have joined and said, hey, can you do this? We're like, sure. So it's not anything I had on my 5-year plan. It really came out of a need that was probably always there. So that's the Sober Mom Squad.
I love that. And when I became sober 8 years ago, it was kind of like pre-internet. There wasn't really a lot of support online. And I feel like more than ever, there's so much more online support like the Sober Mom Squad. And I'm always getting asked, like, what do I do? Where do I start? If a lot of people don't want to walk into an AA meeting. So this would be the perfect thing for someone to, maybe join and get some support that way.
Yeah. And I think the pandemic, it was one of the great things to come out of the pandemic was the realization that we need more virtual support. And, AA ended up having more online options, Smart Recovery, like a lot of these organizations did add a virtual component, which I think is just because you're right, like walking and opening that door to a church basement, that's like 1,000-pound door when you are not ready for it. Right. Yeah.
Yes. And I think I would be more apt to have gotten sober quicker if I could do something that wasn't so like scary. Like you said, like walking to that AA meeting was probably the scariest fucking thing I've ever done in my life, to go in and be like, I'm Beth, I'm an alcoholic, and then have that relief. But at the same time, it took me a few years to actually just walk in that door. So if I feel like, if I had that, let's just click online and you can put maybe, the picture off and you could just, listen, that would be just easier.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many women saying, and we say that too, like you can change your name, you can go dark, you don't have to show your face, you can just listen. And we've had multiple women be like, I came on for months and just listened. And I just heard stories that were like mine. And that's what they needed to like have that realization before they were willing to speak. So I do think, I think that was one of the great things that came out of the pandemic. And, Sober Mom Squad wouldn't be there had that not happened. So I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
And so how does one become a recovery coach?
So there are lots of programs through, CTI, through, of course, now that you asked me, the name is going to blank, Red Institute, and it's called something now I can't think, Certified Professional Recovery Coach Council, IARPC, International Association of Recovering Coaches Professionals. Good God. There's multiple, but I think it's important to look at who their credentialing body is, right? And look at what the coursework is. For me, I was really Googling like, hey, I want to learn about family systems and recovery. And like, that's how I found the coaching program because it had that in its course curriculum. And I was like, I want to learn these things. And so I think the biggest thing is, go into it for the knowledge you're going to get out, not necessarily for the job you're going to do, because I didn't necessarily know I was going to coach with people. I didn't know I was going to start a group for sober moms. Like that's not what I set out to do. I really wanted to learn, and which that really led me to what I was doing. So there's lots of certification programs out there. Your mileage may vary. You can Google search and probably come up with a lot of them, but look to see if they do have a certifying body like CTI or ICF, or there's lots of others.
I love that. I would be curious to actually learn more about that. I mean, as still being sober and a nutrition coach, I would like to know more about the recovery aspect. I get questions so much. And even me, I'm like, I don't know that.
Kind of makes sense for you, Beth. Now that you're saying
actually,
it out loud.
like while she was talking about it, I was like, wow, I didn't even know actually that it even existed, to be honest. That's really awesome. I'm actually going to look into that. So
okay.
I'm feeling very inspired right now.
Yeah.
I'll send you some links.
Yeah.
I don't get a cut of it. I'm not an affiliate. I don't work.
Nice discllaimer.
It's so nice to like be able to recommend things and know that I'm not
coming from a good place.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally. So I want to go back to the MLM really quickly because I have a question for you. If you could shed some light on this. So a lot of times I know I've had personal interactions with people like this. They'll get in an MLM and they'll start promoting the products and then saying that these products are what got them their results, even though they had nothing to fucking do with it, right? How prevalent is that?
Oh man. So again, these are just people, right? So there's no checks and balances through the company that any of these before and afters, any of these results are accurate. So you can see things online or in an infomercial and be like, that's questionable, but someone's probably done a little fact checking on it. You'll find things online through MLMs that like the before and after picture isn't even the same person. I can say personally, my MLM was a skincare. I have always had really great skin. My mom made me wear sunscreen religiously when I was a kid. She's got great skin, just genetically got good skin. So being in this MLM, it was like, oh my gosh, I want to look like her. I'm going to use these products. When in actuality, I use the products, but that's not why like my skin looks nice, right? You'll see this in, hair care. I can't tell you how many people who sell MLM shampoo have hair extensions, and no shade, go to town, get your hair extensions. But like, you're selling a product and you're not actually representing what the product is. You'll see people who are like before and afters of weight loss and like they just had a baby. And then it's 6 months later, it's like, that happens anyway. Like after you have a baby, it's so prevalent. And you're really encouraged when you do your own before and afters, like to like find the worst picture of your skin before, the worst picture of your hair, or where you're like whatever, your posture's crummy or whatever. And
it's manipulating the camera and lighting and things like that.
It's totally manipulated. Yeah. So, any before and afters from an MLM, again, you have to realize these are just people with their iPhone doing their own thing. This isn't like stock footage from a company with vetted stories.
Right.
Smoke and mirrors.
Those before and afters kill me, especially like the Plexus ones that I see. I have a lot of locals that are on Plexus, and the before and afters, and they're literally like 3 days. Let's do this 3-day, like whatever, Slim Shed, or I don't know.
Just logically speaking, that 3 days isn't going to do shit.
And like she's sticking clearly, like just extending her belly purposely, and then clearly like sucking it in the second one. And I have a couple of friends that will send me these, and they know that I'm a nutrition coach, and they're like, Beth, what is this? I'm like, that's fake.
It's fake.
That is so fake.
Yeah. I mean, like I've had a gnarly stomach flu before, and I could tell you, I lost 10 pounds or something, but it's like,
right.
It's all water. It's, again, they manipulate this stuff.
Yeah.
They manipulate it for their benefit, no matter what it is.
That's one of the reasons why, as a coach, I don't really use before and after pictures, progress pictures in my marketing. Like I use them for internal use for clients, but I don't use them to get new clients or to market or anything like that.
Right.
Because this industry is just full of bullshit and smoke and mirrors.
It is. And I think also that takes away why are you doing this? Like, is it all for your looks or how you feel? And that's why I think healthcare, with skincare or nails or whatever, it's like, it's all appearance. And for health, for nutrition, when the before and afters are all just, fat, skinny or whatever, you're totally misinterpreting.
Good, bad, and nothing else, right?
Right.
You're totally misinterpreting what health is. And if that's why you're doing it, to be skinny, well, then like starvation would be an MLM, which, I mean, Optavia is starvation, but you know what I'm saying? It's missing the point. It's making body size the thing instead of health the thing, or how you feel, or it's icky.
Yeah.
Very, very icky. Well said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're promoting everything that we're not about, basically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think that's why Beth and I have gotten kind of more involved in the anti-MLM movement, and talking with people such as yourself, because we see the impact it has on the people that we're talking with every day. I know personally, that's why I got involved in kind of speaking out against MLMs, is because
you're pretty involved in anti-MLM stuff, huh, Matt?
I am now. Yeah. Thanks to my friendship with Berta and a couple of other people, for sure. Like I did a video recording for her when she was in DC just a few months ago, advocating. So that's why I got involved, was because I saw the impact that these supplements were having on clients, on people that I'm talking to every day. And I was like, I got to put my foot down, because I'm no bullshit. I can't sit here and just turn a blind eye to big black eye in the industry.
Right. Well, and you also have these people who, like the Shailene Johnsons or something. And there's many people like her who, probably has a personal chef and all these things. And so it's this unattainable lifestyle for people who work a really, long hour job. And I don't know, or people who are like doing the weight loss injections and saying it's their supplements, or people who are doing other stuff and saying it's this, and getting Botox and saying it's their skincare products. Like, again, no shade to any of those things.
Right.
Again, there's no checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just throw out there too, for anybody listening, if you're in an MLM, we're not anti-you, we're the business structure, right?
Right.
Because that's something that, of course, the MLMs will tell you, is that they're just attacking you, but we're not, we are here to support you. And we want to show you that this isn't necessarily the way. So on that note, then, what would you say to somebody that maybe, if there's some lights going off right now, if they wanted to start looking into getting out, or if they have questions, like, what would be your advice for them?
Yeah. First thing is, do a profit loss statement, because you've probably never been told to do that, but really take a look at how much money you're spending, how much money you've spent, even if you use the products, even if you're told it's like rent on your business, all the money you spend on trips and all of, childcare, whatever, and then all of the time you spend, and be really honest about all of the time you're on your phone. And then kind of do some math, and how much are you making per hour here? And I think that tells people a lot. And also remember that that's before taxes. You're an independent contractor. So I think that is very illuminating for people because you're not encouraged to do that when you're in an MLM. And then really look at your own behavior. Like, what are you getting out of this? What did you join for? Did you join for money? Let's look for some other ways maybe you could make money. Did you join for a community? Let's look for some other ways you can find a community, because the MLM will make itself fit whatever ails you. And there are other ways to get it that are not predatory. And I think too, for, just for anyone listening to this who's in an MLM or feels like they support an MLM, or you think, oh, well, I just want to buy that spatula from my friend because it supports her. Like, you are not supporting your friend by supporting their MLM. They are getting very little of that sale. Very little of it's going in their pocket. A lot of it's going to their upline, who you don't know, and their upline, and their upline, and their upline, and the parent company. Mm-hmm. So financially, they're not benefiting. And then you're just keeping them more roped into this very fake dream that they are probably never going to achieve. So if you want to support your friends, like, again, look at what they need, ask what they need. Hey, do you want me to watch your kid for a couple hours? Do you need help moving? Can I make you a meal? Like, there are so many ways to be supportive that don't keep people roped into these schemes.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of people don't even realize they're buying into an MLM. Just like the collagen supplements, when we were seeing them all over TikTok in 2020, which now they should not. I think what do they say? It's illegal to, promote MLMs on TikTok, but people still do. But
they don't enforce that bullshit.
But, people are still buying because they're selling this dream of, lose weight quickly. And suddenly they're roped into an MLM. So you guys, you need to be careful of what you're purchasing. Pay attention, ask questions. If it's being sold online and people are promoting it, the discount code, and, you can make money too, be aware.
Yeah. And if they say they're not an MLM, they definitely are.
Right. Exactly. Right. Oh my goodness. It's so awesome having you. I can't believe an hour went by already.
I know.
That's
oh my
rude.
Goodness.
I could talk about this stuff all day.
For sure.
Oh man.
So Emily, if people love what you're about, want to learn more about you, and also your book, like we want to talk about your book really quickly. So yes, hey hon. Yes, Beth. There you go, Beth. Where can people find your book?
Yeah. So book can be found anywhere books are sold. I always suggest to support your local bookstore. It's always very important, but you can get it anywhere. And you can find me on all platforms at Emily Lynn Paulson.
Awesome.
There it is. Thank you so much.
Yay. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure having you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk soon. Hope you enjoyed this episode. So why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.